When you detach completely, something subtle but powerful happens inside you first. You stop reaching outward for emotional stability and start standing firmly on your own foundation. Detachment is not coldness, punishment, or indifference. It is the moment you reclaim ownership of your emotional state. As long as your happiness, confidence, or sense of worth is tied to how a woman treats you, responds to you, or chooses you, you are unconsciously placing yourself beneath her. No matter how kind or loving you are, that emotional dependence quietly shifts the power dynamic, and where power is uneven, respect cannot fully exist. A woman instinctively respects a man who does not need her to feel complete. This doesn't mean he doesn't care. It means his sense of identity, direction, and self-belief existed before her and continues regardless of her presence. When you detach, you stop monitoring her tone, overanalyzing her texts, or trying to read meaning into every small behavior. You are no longer emotionally negotiating for reassurance. That inner calm changes the way you show up. Your words carry more weight because they are no longer fueled by fear of loss. Emotional dependence often disguises itself as effort, loyalty, or devotion, but underneath it is the silent question, am I enough for you? When that question lives in your behavior, it leaks into everything. You explain too much, you tolerate what you shouldn't, you react instead of choosing. Detachment removes that question entirely. You are no longer seeking approval, you are observing alignment. That shift is felt immediately, even if nothing is said out loud. When a man detaches, he stops trying to control outcomes. He no longer needs to convince, persuade, or hold on. This absence of desperation is what restores power. Power here does not mean dominance over her. It means command over yourself. And self-command is the foundation of respect. A woman may not consciously analyze it, but she feels it in the way you respond slowly instead of urgently, in the way you remain grounded when things are uncertain, and in the way you don't crumble when she pulls away. Detachment also signals emotional maturity. It tells her that you are capable of standing alone, handling loss, and choosing yourself without resentment. Many men believe that showing how much they care will earn respect. In reality, respect comes from emotional discipline. When you detach, you show that your emotions are not at the mercy of external validation. You are present by choice, not by need. As emotional dependence fades, anxiety fades with it. You stop over-investing early. You stop placing her on a pedestal. You stop seeing her reactions as a measure of your value. This inner stability creates a new dynamic where she no longer feels responsible for your emotional well-being. That relief alone triggers respect, because she can now interact with you freely, rather than feeling unconsciously burdened by your expectations. Most importantly, detachment returns you to yourself. You begin acting in alignment with your standards instead of your fears. You speak when it matters and stay silent when it doesn't. You walk away when something disrespects your boundaries. This is not done to provoke a reaction, but because you are no longer afraid of losing connection. And when fear disappears, authenticity emerges. This is why detachment restores power so naturally. It is not about manipulation or strategy. It is about no longer outsourcing your emotional center. A woman respects you when she senses that you are with her because you want to be, not because you need to be. And that respect begins the moment you detach completely and stand rooted in your own worth. When you detach completely, you stop trying to prove who you are, and that silence becomes your strongest statement. Most men believe respect is earned through explanation, effort, and emotional transparency. In reality, respect is communicated through restraint. Detachment removes the impulse to over-justify your actions, defend your decisions, or clarify your intentions every time uncertainty appears. The moment you stop explaining yourself, you signal that you trust your own judgment, and that quiet confidence is felt instantly. A man who knows his worth does not rush to be understood. He allows his behavior to speak. When you detach, you no longer chase clarity through long conversations or emotional negotiations. You stop trying to correct misunderstandings that don't truly matter. This doesn't come from arrogance, it comes from certainty. And certainty is magnetic. A woman senses that you are grounded in who you are, not dependent on her agreement to feel valid. Detachment communicates self-worth at a subconscious level because it removes urgency. You respond when you choose, not when anxiety demands it. You don't react emotionally to every shift in her tone or energy. This calm pacing tells her that your life is full, your mind is stable, and your attention is valuable. Attention that is given freely but not desperately becomes something that must be earned, not assumed. When you are attached, you tend to overshare. You explain why you feel a certain way, why you said something, why you acted as you did. Over time, this erodes respect because it places her in a position of emotional authority. Detachment removes that imbalance. You are no longer seeking permission to be yourself. You say less, but what you say carries more weight because it comes from a place of alignment rather than insecurity. Silence, when rooted in self respect, is not withdrawal, it is composure. Detachment teaches you to pause instead of react. When something bothers you, you don't rush to confront it emotionally. You step back, observe, and decide how much access someone deserves. This measured response forces her to take your presence seriously. She realizes that access to you is not unconditional. It is based on mutual respect. Detachment also removes the need to impress. You stop performing for validation. You no longer try to be constantly interesting, available, or accommodating. This absence of performance creates authenticity. A woman respects a man who is comfortable being exactly who he is without trying to manage her perception of him. That comfort signals inner strength. As you detach, your actions become consistent and predictable in the best way. You don't swing between intensity and distance based on her behavior. You remain steady. That emotional consistency builds trust, and trust is a pillar of respect. She may not articulate it, but she feels safer engaging with a man who's not emotionally volatile or reactive. Most importantly, detachment makes your presence intentional. You are no longer there out of fear of losing her. You are there because you choose to be. That choice, unspoken, changes everything. A woman begins to respect you because she senses that your self-worth exists independently of her approval. When your value is no longer something you argue for or explain, it becomes something that is simply recognized. And that recognition begins the moment you detach and allow your silence, restraint, and composure to speak for you. Neediness is rarely loud or obvious. Most of the time, it hides behind good intentions, constant availability, and the desire to keep the connection alive at any cost. When you are attached, you feel an invisible pressure to respond quickly, to smooth over tension, to make sure she doesn't drift away. Even when you say the right things, that pressure is felt. Detachment is what removes it. In the moment that pressure disappears, respect has room to return. When you detach completely, you stop needing immediate outcomes. You are no longer trying to secure her interest, affection, or reassurance in real time. The shift alone changes your energy. You stop checking your phone repeatedly. You stop adjusting your behavior to match her mood. You stop adjusting your behavior to match her mood. You stop chasing emotional certainty. Without realizing it, she begins to feel a difference because the emotional weight she once carried is gone. Neediness erodes respect because it communicates scarcity. It suggests that you don't believe you have options, purpose, or fulfillment beyond her. Even if that isn't true, attachment makes it feel true. Detachment corrects this at the root. You no longer seek constant validation because your sense of worth is internal. You don't panic when communication slows. You don't overcompensate when she pulls back. That calm independence is deeply respectable. As neediness fades, emotional pressure fades with it. You stop expecting her to fill emotional gaps, soothe your insecurity, or provide constant reassurance. This allows her to experience you without obligation. Instead of feeling like she has to manage her emotions, she is free to simply engage. That freedom often creates respect where tension once lived. Detachment also changes how you handle uncertainty. Instead of trying to control outcomes, you accept them. You allow space. You let things unfold without forcing direction. This shows emotional strength. A man who can sit with uncertainty without becoming anxious or reactive demonstrates confidence in himself and in life. That confidence is felt instinctively. When you are detached, you no longer chase mixed signals. You observe behavior instead of interpreting it emotionally. If something aligns, you continue. If it doesn't, you step back without drama. This self-respect removes the pattern of overinvesting in situations that do not reciprocate. A woman respects a man who does not beg for clarity but simply responds to reality. Neediness often leads to overgiving. You do more, say more, and offer more in hopes of stabilizing the connection. Detachment restores balance. You give when it feels right, not when you are afraid of loss. This makes your effort meaningful rather than desperate. What is given freely but not excessively is valued more. As emotional urgency disappears, your presence becomes lighter and more grounded. Conversations feel calmer. Interactions feel more natural. You are no longer trying to extract something from the moment. You are simply there. That grounded presence is rare, and rarity creates respect. Most importantly, detachment returns dignity to your behavior. You no longer chase, plead, or overextend. You maintain your boundaries without announcing them. You walk away when something no longer aligns without needing to justify it. This quiet self-respect speaks louder than any words ever could. When neediness is gone, respect has space to grow. And that respect begins the moment you stop needing her to validate your worth and start choosing yourself instead. When you detach completely, you stop shielding her from the emotional weight of her own decisions. As long as you remain emotionally available, responsive, and accommodating despite being undervalued, she never fully feels the impact of her choices. Detachment changes that. It removes the safety net that once softened the consequences of inconsistency, distance, or disrespect, and it is only when consequences are felt that respect can truly form. Most men believe that staying kind, patient, and understanding will eventually inspire appreciation, but when those qualities are given without boundaries, they lose their meaning. Detachment is the boundary. It is the moment you stop compensating for her uncertainty with your emotional presence. You are no longer there to reassure, to comfort, or to fill the space she created. This absence is not punishment. It is reality finally being allowed to speak. When you detach, you stop reminding her of your value. You stop explaining what she is losing. You stop trying to be remembered. Instead, you allow silence to do the work. That silence forces reflection. It creates contrast between what life felt like with you and what it feels like without you. Without emotional access to you, she has no choice but to experience the gap your presence once filled. Respect is born when actions meet consequences. If a woman pulls away and you chase, the consequence disappears. If she takes you for granted and you stay available, the lesson is never learned. Detachment restores cause and effect. It teaches without words. She begins to understand that your time, energy, and emotional availability were privileges, not entitlements. Detachment also removes emotional bargaining. You're no longer negotiating for consistency or effort. You simply step back when alignment disappears. This self-respect reframes the dynamic. Instead of seeing you as someone who will always remain regardless of behavior, she sees you as someone who chooses where to invest. That choice commands respect. There is a powerful shift that happens when you no longer protect someone from the outcome of losing you. Regret, reflection, and awareness require space to develop. As long as you remain present, she can postpone those feelings. Detachment accelerates clarity. She is forced to sit with her decisions rather than distract herself with your availability. This is often misunderstood as coldness or ego. In reality, it is emotional integrity. You're no longer sacrificing your self-worth to preserve a connection that lacks reciprocity. You are allowing life to respond naturally to behavior. And if you have your own clients, she just slows, more makeup, more clothes, makeup, more of the crap. Detachment also communicates finality in a calm, dignified way. You're not trying to scare her into valuing you. You're not waiting for a reaction. You're simply living your life without emotional attachment to the outcome. That detachment is unsettling at first because it removes control. And when control disappears, awareness begins. As she feels the absence, she may begin to reevaluate. Not because you demanded respect, but because you stopped offering yourself without it. That is the moment the lesson becomes real. Respect grows when boundaries are enforced through action, not words. Detachment allows her to experience the truth that losing access to you is a consequence, not a threat. And it is in that realization that respect either returns or is replaced by acceptance. Either way, you win by choosing yourself and letting consequences speak where words never could. When you detach completely, you stop positioning yourself as someone seeking approval and naturally step into the role of the prize. This shift doesn't happen because you declare your value or demand to be treated differently. It happens because your behavior changes. You are no longer chasing, fixing, or proving anything. Your energy turns inward toward your purpose, your growth, and your life. And that is what repositions you in her eyes. A man becomes the prize when his life is full and directed, not when he revolves around someone else. Detachment restores that direction. You stop organizing your time around her availability. You stop putting your plans on hold in case she calls. You move forward with or without her involvement. This signals abundance. It shows that your world is moving, evolving, and expanding independently of her presence. When you are attached, you often unconsciously communicate that she is the center of your emotional universe. That dynamic places her above you, even if you don't intend it. Detachment corrects this imbalance. You return to your own mission. Your attention becomes selective rather than constant. And selective attention is powerful. A woman respects a man who chooses where to invest his time and energy. Detachment also changes how you pursue. You no longer pursue to gain validation. You engage to share an experience. There's no pressure behind your actions, no urgency to impress, no fear of loss. This relaxed confidence is what makes a man feel rare. Rarity creates value. Value creates respect. As you detach, you stop tolerating what doesn't align with your standards. You don't announce boundaries, you live them. If something feels disrespectful or inconsistent, you simply remove yourself from the situation. This quiet enforcement is far more powerful than confrontation. It shows that you value your time and emotional space. A man who walks away without bitterness is always respected more than one who stays and complains. Being the prize also means you are emotionally self-contained. You enjoy connection, but you are not defined by it. You can appreciate a woman deeply without losing yourself. This balance is attractive because it shows strength without control. You are open but not dependent, interested but not invested beyond reason. Detachment brings a sense of calm to your presence. You are no longer trying to extract something from interactions, you are simply sharing yourself. This grounded energy makes others feel at ease and curious. A woman begins to feel that being part of your life is something to be earned, not something automatically given. When you become the prize, the dynamic flips naturally. She may begin to invest more, ask more questions, or seek your attention, but by then, the outcome no longer defines you. You are not chasing a reaction. You are evaluating whether the connection enhances your life. That evaluation is the ultimate expression of self-respect. Most importantly, detachment aligns you with your true value. You stop measuring yourself through her interest and start measuring yourself through her interest and start measuring yourself through your actions, integrity, and direction. That alignment is what commands respect, not just from her, but from yourself. When you return to your purpose and live as the prize, respect follows effortlessly. And if it doesn't, you walk away without regret, knowing your worth was never dependent on her recognition. When you detach completely, you create space. And space is where desire and respect are able to breathe again. As long as you are emotionally attached, constantly present, and predictably available, there is no room for reflection, curiosity, or longing. Detachment introduces distance not as a tactic, but as a natural result of self-respect. That distance allows her to feel the contrast between having you and not having you, and contrast is what awakens awareness. Desire cannot exist under pressure. Respect cannot grow when someone feels emotionally crowded. When you detach, you remove the invisible tension that comes from expectations. You are no longer waiting for messages, reactions, or reassurance. You are living your life fully, regardless of what she chooses. This independence changes the emotional atmosphere completely. Detachment also restores mystery. When you stop explaining, chasing, or filling every silence, you become less predictable. Not in a manipulative way, but in a grounded way. You are no longer broadcasting your emotional state or intentions. She begins to wonder what you are doing, how you are feeling, and where you are investing your energy. That curiosity is a byproduct of respect, not neediness. As space increases, reflection begins. She has time to process interactions without emotional noise. She starts to notice your absence and the way it feels. This is often when appreciation grows, not because you demanded it, but because it is no longer guaranteed. Access that is no longer automatic becomes valuable. Detachment also removes emotional control from the dynamic. When your mood is no longer affected by her behavior, the power imbalance disappears. You are steady regardless of whether she leans in or pulls back. That steadiness is deeply grounding. A woman respects a man whose emotional center cannot be shaken by uncertainty. In this space, genuine desire has a chance to return. Not the desire born from fear of losing you, but the desire rooted in attraction and admiration. When you are no longer trying to secure interest, interest either arises naturally or fades honestly. Either outcome is clean. There is no confusion, no emotional bargaining. Detachment also frees you from outcome dependency. You are no longer attached to whether she comes back, changes, or commits. That freedom is transformative. Ironically, it is often when you no longer care about the result that the dynamic softens. But even if nothing returns, you remain whole. Respect that comes back after detachment is different. It is quieter, more stable, and more sincere. It is based on who you are, not on what you tolerate or how much you give. And if respect does not return, detachment ensures you are no longer investing in something misaligned. The most important truth is this: detachment is not about getting her back. It is about coming back to yourself. When you let go of emotional captivity, you reclaim your power, your peace, and your identity, and whether she returns with respect or disappears entirely, You move forward, grounded, complete, and unshaken, because the moment you detached, you already won.